Where this fence starts in the calm Pacific Ocean is where the political turbulence begins. This dividing line separates the United States from Mexico. This place is not seen by most Americans, and most don't know what really goes on here.
They don't tell them the dangers of crossing the border illegally.
This is the southern border.
As we get better at enforcing along the border, the organizations get much more aggressive and much more bold.
Jose Hernandez is one of 21,000 Border Patrol agents patrolling the region.
Don't know this is where the end of the fence is.
This place is ground zero for the international drug trade.
We're seeing an increase in cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine.
Illegal goods are smuggled in cars, dropped by small planes, and thrown over.
So the tunnel went underneath the airport tarmac.
Sometimes the contraband is out of plain sight in clandestine tunnels built by cartels.
Since 9/11, we have found 60.
This is where the Border Patrol filled one tunnel with concrete. The drug problem is constant. Roughly 90% of the cocaine in the U.S. comes from south of the border.
Cruzó con él ahorita, ¿no?
Agents here have no choice but to keep their guards up.
Assaults are a little bit up again this year over last year. Right now we're about 40, and we still have another 6 months left in this year.
75,000 people enter the U.S. through the port of San Ysidro and San Diego every single day.
Do you have a passport on you?
It is the people without papers who are desperate to get north, and they find a way through around the barriers or through them. In 2016, there were 550 cuts in the fences near San Diego alone. Recently on the rise, the number of people attempting to get to the U.S. by boat. From the Pacific to the Gulf of Mexico, there was a border barrier of some sort for 705 miles. Other areas have natural barriers like mountains or rivers. Populated areas can have 2 or more barriers. On the right is the primary fence. Built in 1995 using material left from the Vietnam War, it is intended to stop vehicles. The secondary fence completed in 2008 under President George Bush's Secure Fence Act. In the San Diego sector, the primary fence stretches 48 miles. It ends where the Otay mountain range begins.
Right here is the United States. That rock that's behind it is in Mexico.
This location is miles from any U.S. city. The left is Tijuana, Mexico. You can easily see the life below, dirt roads, traffic, and the people coming and going from unfinished hillside homes.
So you can see here this trail I was mentioning. The trail goes right on the side of the hill, right behind the fence, and it goes right through there. And it just drops down. Some may go up on the hill here, some may go down to the bottom of the canyon. But it's still an area that's highly traveled.
During our 20 minutes here, a man with a backpack in hand came out of the hills and approached us. He stopped, then went west along the fence. He may have been trying to cross. People who cross sometimes get lost in the searing desert wasteland, some dying from dehydration or cold. Apprehensions are common.
In San Diego sector, we average about 85 people a day.
In 2016, 31,891 people were apprehended. That is just in the San Diego sector.
This is the first time we've broken 30,000 apprehensions in the last 5 years.
415,816 illegal crossers were apprehended in 2016 nationwide.
Texas is now they're experiencing their surge in people crossing the border.
Nobody builds walls better than me, believe me.
We've been saying for years what we thought we needed.
The Border Patrol's union came out in support of President Donald Trump.
It was the first time that we had someone that actually considered us the subject matter expert.
The president proposed more resources and manpower. Currently, there are just over 21,000 agents.
There's actually a legal number that we're supposed to have. We're 1,200 below that.
His most controversial and fiercely opposed proposal, the construction of the wall.
We want to make sure it's something that's not easily defeatable, something that isn't cut or something that isn't easily climbed over or gone under.
The current infrastructure has lights, technology, and agents, but they say they need more. The crux of the bitter wall debate is a $25 billion wall the way to go? President Bush's secondary fence, completed nearly a decade ago, cut apprehension numbers by hundreds of thousands.
that we need that infrastructure. A wall is part of that infrastructure.
But even with these current fences, the drugs and people continue to flow into the United States.
I think our stance along the border is what really made them start using the tunnels more often.
Since President Trump took office, illegal crossings have decreased.
We want to know who's coming across the border, and that's what we're trying to figure out.
But will the wall make us safer, and is it worth it? That is still to be determined. Mexican license plates, pedestrian-filled sidewalks, our way to border crossings, and Border Patrol SUVs are normal for border towns. This is Calexico. Nearly 40,000 people live here. This town is bustling. That is because another 40,000 people cross into the city every single day.
We're very much like Mexicali.
The city limits stop at this tall metal border fence.
We are the gateway to another country.
You can see and hear the life on the other side, Mexicali, Mexico. The Mexicali metro area is much bigger with over 1 million people. Calexico Mayor Armando Real explains the thousands who cross are vital for his city to function.
70 to 90% of the business that we depend on is from the consumer across the border.
This is 3 p.m. on a Friday. The crowded sidewalks are filled with students with backpacks. Majority of them are walking south of the border, back home to Mexicali.
All the kids right now from high school that go to our high school locally, all these kids live in Mexicali. Every single one of them. You can follow them back. They all live over there.
Real, who is also the Calexico ambassador to Mexicali, says the U.S. town would simply shut down without its sister city.
We will build the wall 100%.
You know, you don't want to go to your neighbor's house if you feel you're not wanted there.
Since President Donald Trump took office, Real says he has noticed a difference here.
They feel that the federal government now looks at them in a different way.
The administration's infamous wall is a reality for people here. It is something they see and interact with every day.
Whether the wall is 18 feet or 30 feet or 40 feet, you know, the person that wants to get over it will.
The reactions from people in town we spoke with were not much different.
Spending so much money for nothing that they're gonna be able to stop.
The way of life here may not change.
They are sisters cities, you know.
But the sense of community between the two cities might.
And the whole vibe would be different.
They say this tall metal fence that splits the two cities and countries works fine the way it is. Changing it may cause more harm than good. Head west for an hour to the rural community of Boulevard in San Diego County. You will most likely get a different response.
Well, it's changed quite a bit since I was a kid.
We met up with Robert Maupin.
If we get a wall that they can't cut through and drive through.
The south end of his 250-acre ranch is the border. This is how he walks along the border, armed with an AR-10 with his dogs by his side.
Mexican police with their weapons drawn on my property.
And he has plenty of reasons as to why.
And there's a group coming across. That's Mexico, that's us.
The 77-year-old widower lives here alone. He knows this property like the back of his hand and can share story after story about what has happened here.
And this is what your fence looks like when it's hit by a bunch of smugglers. They just drive right through it. That's why I started putting up the chain link.
The fence built by the government wasn't good enough, so he took his family's protection into his own hands years ago.
This is the back fence that he's built here. We have these barbed wire that he's put here to stop people from coming over. There's obviously barbed wire up top. And on the other side of this fence that's built on his property is the fence with Mexico that was built by the American government.
Maupin, an obvious Trump supporter, says the wall would bring a sense of security and reduce the illegal crossings and activity.
I would not mind at all. I'd even help build it, even at my age.
He knows the southern border and immigration policies have many Americans up in arms.
They're oblivious to what's going on and the danger of living here on the border.
From being held hostage by the Mexican military to shootouts, stories go on. He thinks the wall will change enough.
As a sovereign nation, you must protect your border.
Life on the border is different.
You know, in a nutshell, the resources I don't think are being spent the right way.
Some say no matter what barrier goes up, those desperate enough to get to this side will, one way or another.
Saying in Mexico is Mexico so far away from God, so close to the United States.
This is the Central Valley, a place with an abundance of immigrants from downtown streets to the rural farmland. It's easy to say cities like Fresno wouldn't be what they are today without immigration. But what if something changed 350 miles south of here at the U.S.-Mexico border? Would the construction of a wall help the valley in the future?
All of the drugs that come here, especially south of the border, Mexico.
Or would that new wall hurt us?
We have a lot to lose across all industries.
President Donald Trump wants to keep the bad out. Some in the valley say a wall will do more harm than good.
There are approximately over 200,000 persons who are undocumented within the Central Valley.
Samuel Molina works for Mi Familia Volta, a nonprofit that works to help the Latino community. According to the Department of Food and Agriculture, there are 76,400 farms and ranches in California, and agriculture is a $54 billion industry.
A lot of immigrant farm workers. I mean, it's already hurting the ag industry, it's hurting the tourism industry.
Finding farm workers is proving to be difficult for farmers up and down the state already. It may get worse without the people to do the job.
You know, if something like a wall were to be built, it would be very detrimental to our economy, to our communities.
He says undocumented workers come here for a better life.
We have to see what we're doing for the community.
We met up with a student from Fresno State who says she is undocumented. She said she would rather not show her face. For this story, we will call her Vanessa. She came to the United States at an early age with her family and says they crossed the border illegally. She says undocumented people have to make a living and take jobs that most won't do.
Labor jobs are doing in the fields. People, I think they're doing some good things out there. And if Trump takes out all those people, think about it, how long, that's going to be a huge problem.
She says jobs in the field and hard labor jobs support our economy.
Vallarta, Walmart, or any store, that's where they get the food, you know.
Her father, who is a gardener, is a prime example.
I actually went with him working as a gardener, and I didn't like it. It was hard, you know. So I was like, I have to go to college because I don't want the life.
President Donald Trump has said he wants the crime and drugs to stop flowing into our country. But the question is, would a wall impact any of that in the valley?
She had developed a relationship with a man who was here illegally. He had been deported once, if not twice, before.
One incident that got national attention is a homicide case out of Tulare County.
At some point, she wanted to discontinue that relationship. As a result of that, we believe that he killed her.
Sheriff Mike Boudreau explained to us the case of Cecilia Bravo Cabrera, a mother of four who was last seen leaving Tachi Palace Casino in Lemoore on June 9th of last year. Her car was found torched in an orchard near Traver. Deputies arrested her ex, Francisco Valdivia, and his other wife from Mexico, Rosalina Lopez, on suspicion of murdering Cabrera.
This is one of very few cases in the nation that have ever been taken to a jury without a body.
Both suspects are undocumented, according to authorities.
Regardless of the outcome, immigration enforcement likely would pay real close attention to this case.
It's nothing new that drugs are a problem at the border.
We're heavily impacted by Mexico here. It's just because of where we are.
Experts say they see it here every day.
When you come across that border, you head up north, and we're north.
Robert Penal is a retired task force commander of the Central Valley high-intensity drug trafficking area. He knows everything about drugs in the valley. He says Interstate 5 and Highway 99 are highways for crime and vital for smugglers. The billion-dollar drug industry wasn't built by jumping a fence. It's all about smuggling the drugs, whether it's underground or through the checkpoints.
If you are watching the border, and as soon as the time is right, you flood the border with 10 vehicles, and let's say 5 of them get through. 5 of your 10 vehicles, you've had a great day. You're still going to make a lot of money.
The secluded areas of the valley and mountains are why the drugs come here.
We just have the southern border, and we have the I-599 corridor, and then we have seclusion, and we have minimized law enforcement contact. You get way up in those mountains, you get into certain locations, there's just not a lot of policemen.
So the question lingers, would a wall help these problems enough?
Anytime you increase security, it's going to help somewhere.
The problems are obvious.
The storyline goes with illegal immigrant kills U.S. citizen. The reality of it is that we have many people in our county who are undocumented and live here without ever committing a crime.
But the benefits are here too. As the political debate continues in the nation's capital, it is easy to say a lot of people in communities like the Central Valley will be keeping a close eye on what happens next.